Hi, hello, good afternoon. We are here again after the short break with a new topic, with a new panel discussion. This time the topic is cinema exhibition and film distribution in the time of COVID-19. Let's start with Hrvoje. Could you please introduce us with some facts and figures? Just 1 second, Hrvoje is the member of the board of the Blitz Cinestar, the biggest cinema chain in Croatia. We have in Brussels Laura Houlgatte Abbot, CEO of the International Union of Cinemas, that represents the interests of trade association and exhibition across 38 countries in Europe. And the third guest is Alen Mutinić, who is president of the Croatian Independent Cinema Network. So, hello again to everyone. Hrvoje, could you tell us some facts and figures? We know that numbers are in decline. We know that numbers are not good, but could you tell us what happened during the last 3 months?
It's a public knowledge, and as you know, the exhibition itself, it's one of the most affected sector in the world, and comparable almost to any industry. In the beginning of this crisis, that was certain comparison with tourism and different industries, but in the exhibition, it's quite different because it's not the issue of the COVID itself, which of course it's demanding all industries in the world, but it's the main issue, it's a lack of content to be shown in theaters. Mm-hmm. So this is something that is difficult to explain either to audience, but not only to audience, to the whole world. So just to make good comparison, so example, if you have a restaurant, basically you have a restaurant, let's say you have a guest and you have a food to serve. In the exhibition, we have a cinemas and we have of course infrastructure, but we don't have a food to serve, and the food, it's the movies. So basically it's a lack of food. So any restaurant in the world without the food cannot exist. This is the same what's happening in cinemas. Mm-hmm. So this is something uncomparable to any other industries, and very, very specific, because COVID itself takes a lot of attention, of course, with all other aspects what it means. But at the same time, if you don't have the movies to show, this is something really, really tough. The numbers, it's quite catastrophic, I need to say, because as you know, there was a lockdown. In our markets, there was a 5 months non-stop lockdown. After the openings, there was, let's say, some slow start because there was available a couple of the studio movies. And basically, the numbers was around 30% of pre-COVID numbers right now that go decrease around 18 to 19% numbers period of COVID, and going to decline more and more because of lack of content. So basically, what to say? It's quite challenging to operate in these matters, but at least we are happy that we are still open. And
it seems that we lost Hrvoje. So we lost Hrvoje. Let's try with Alen. Alen, is there any differences between your independent cinema network and the Blitz Cinestar major cinema chain?
Yes. But first of all, I want to greet everyone on behalf of Croatian Independent Cinema Networks. I would just like to introduce to everyone that our association has 65 cinemas in 55 cities and islands all over the country. And when we talk about Kino mreža, as we say in Croatian, our biggest strength is this geographical diversity of the cinemas all over the country, because it's of the huge importance for all small cities, local small communities which are far away from bigger cities. The story is a little bit different in our cinemas. Of course, that we also have been hit hard when pandemic started because cinemas completely closed in mid-March. But during the whole time of quarantine and isolation, most of our members try to find many ways to stay in contact with their audience. Mostly it was through different online initiatives like VOD workshops, even the live stream of the films. And later, with the relaxation of the measures, epidemiological measures, several cinemas also did very good drive-in cinema initiatives as well. So this proved to be very crucial to stay in touch with the audience, especially, and all those initiatives were really great accepted from the audience. And that proved to be very important because audience showed that they have need for the good film, a need for the cultural events at all, no matter the isolation and quarantine. Independent cinema, 80% of our members opened immediately late May, last week of May and first week of June. Last week of June, first week of June, when epidemiological measures were adopted by our government. And most of them continue then with very special screenings, events, open air cinemas, drive-in. We try to do as much as possible to bring back the audience. But of course, the problem is also content in one way. So despite all those efforts, of course, that we were missing new films as well. So I also have some numbers. We have quite big drop, but not so big because it ranges from 40% to some cinemas to 85% at other cinemas. But of course, that these numbers are caused by lack of the new films. Just to compare, during the last 6 months, the total number of screening in our cinemas was reduced by 60% and number of film by 50%. Mm-hmm. But what is positive and the biggest difference from the multiplexes is that independent cinema achieved those results, which are great. I think when we think about the whole situation, we achieved those results when we turned completely to independent films, European films, Croatian titles, documentaries, stuff like that. And I think that these good results are also most significant in the cinemas that made strong effort with audience development to this kind of programming before COVID. So this situation paid really well for those cinemas because they worked previously with independent titles.
Laura, a few days ago, UNIC published a statement, basically a call to national government for further public funding support. Can you tell us the situation with, let's say, a reaction of the national governments when we're talking about cinema exhibition?
Sure. So I think one of the first things to mention is things have changed dramatically over the past couple of weeks because we went from a situation where most cinemas were opened in Europe to a situation now when, in a number of countries, they have been told to shut down again. So just to name a few, Italy, the UK, France, Germany, Greece, and then some more local closures in other countries. And just from yesterday, the Netherlands, for example. So that's one thing. From the very beginning, we have been calling on national governments, but also on European institutions to acknowledge the challenging situation that cinemas were facing, because they had to shut down for months because of lockdown. And we all know here that it's not because you're shut down that you have no cost. You still have to pay your rent. You still have to ensure, that your staff can live. You still have to make sure that, your cinemas will be ready to reopen. And of course, when cinemas were allowed to reopen, they had to implement new health and safety measures. They had to train their staff again. They also had, to be, of course, ensuring that we were, limiting the number of people in our screening rooms, depending on the country you were. So your costs were really high. So all of this combined really pushed us to say to all the authorities that cinemas needed support, and that the crisis would last for quite a long time. And I think one of the challenge, of course, was about, it's not because we were allowed to reopen that suddenly everything was perfect again, because you had, losses over 3, 4, 5 months sometime. You were allowed to reopen, but you couldn't welcome the same amount of people as you did before, and you didn't have the films. In loads of countries, we know we were lacking the content. So really that's the core we launched, and I'll touch back on content again in a minute. And I think by and large, countries have been, it really depends where you are, but countries have been reactive. There's not one ideal country. They all brought a set of different measures, and I wish we could combine them all and have the perfect government that gives all the perfect support to cinemas. But it really ranged from support to rent, support to fixed costs, support to losses. So basically covering up to 50, 60, sometimes 70% of losses incurred by cinemas compared to the year before. We also had support from film funds, suspending, of course, the payment of levies, but also sending back some of the monies to cinemas, support to employment, specific support sometimes to cinemas just dedicated to them. But now we've sent that press release, of course, because September was quite a good month, and it was really, optimistic. We saw audiences coming back in numbers in countries that had new films to show, local films, European films. We also had some countries that were lucky enough to be able to show US films that were not released pre-COVID, or that were released on VOD in the US, but in cinemas in Europe. And we could really see that the audience was ready to come back. The audience wanted to come back to the cinema, and we're doing incredible numbers. And it really hurts to see, like last weekend, so before they had to completely shut down again, French cinemas did their best figures since reopening. So our speech is really like, it's two things. It's please give us support to help us see the other end of 2020. Support when we're shut down, but also support when we're open, because we do lack content, and it takes time, to build, our programming, making sure we have enough films coming out, and all type of films, because we know we have to serve very different audiences. But it's also telling them, please remember, cinemas are a successful business. You're talking about an industry that last year made 8.8 billion euros. So it's investing in something that is successful and something that people want to go back to.
Yeah, but in that statement, it said if there will be no support, the results will be catastrophic.
That's for sure.
Could we talk about the bankruptcy of some of the cinema exhibitions?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, it's certainly not my role to pinpoint to specific companies and say they're at risk of bankruptcy, because I don't know, because I don't have the details. I think what we're trying to highlight in this press release is that for some cinemas, getting financial support will make the whole difference between surviving until they can reopen and until they can properly operate, and between, as you say, having to shut down sometime for good. And that's true for cinema of all sizes. And that's also why in the press release, we're calling for support for all types of cinemas, because we do believe in the importance of having a diverse, a diversity of our screening rooms, both from big multiplexes to, one screen, to art house, to independent. And I think that's thanks to the diversity that we've managed to be such a strong industry.
Do you think that sometimes it has to be explained that it's commercial sector, multiplexes are commercial sector, but they also need support? Is it hard to explain in some of the countries that government needs to support commercial sector?
I think sometimes there is a kind of misconception, and it's not only for cinemas, it's true for the overall economy, that big companies shouldn't need support because they probably have the money somewhere in the bank. But we're trying to explain that, each situation is different. And actually, also when you talk about bigger companies, they're the ones who employ a lot of people. So they're also the ones that are at risk of losing a huge number of staff. They're also the ones that, again, all cinemas of all size, commercial cinemas as well, they, everyone pay their taxes, contribute to the economy, employ people. And by the way, they are all places of culture. And this is not the place to start arguing, about the type of content, and are American blockbusters cultural, but I'm going to say so, it is. And I think we need all type of content to satisfy the taste of all our different audiences. And that's literally the message that we're trying to carry through.
Hrvoje, did you or some of your associates talk to someone from Ministry of Culture about this problem, about the financial support?
Basically, this is an ongoing discussion on the European Union. As you know, European Union, of course, post-COVID need to support a lot of industries. It's too premature to comment that, so I cannot tell you anything exactly. As you know, cinema is trying on a case-by-case basis find ways to go to this difficult period. Of course, you have companies that was, let's say, caught in a better moment than others, because many of them has major developments that need to pay off. Many of them has current developments. Many of them have different things. So it's a case-by-case basis, depends by each exhibitors to dealing with that. So right now we are dealing as best as we can, using and burning the reserves that we built over the years, waiting better times to comes out, and to see what's going on will happen on European level, and hope the best that the pandemic will finish as soon as possible, and there will be the end of the tunnel. I need to say that what Laura says, that audience is definitely like the cinema. They prove even in these difficult times they rather and like to come to cinemas, and even under restrictions, even with the masks, which really make happy all exhibitors around the world. That means the industry, it's vital, it's there. And we are sure that after this crisis, audience will support cinemas. But of course, we need to stay alive over that period, and nobody can predict right now how long the pandemic will be going on. So the major issue is not that cinemas has not a vision, commitment, or belief in business. The main thing is it uncertainty, that we doesn't know how long they will take, and when there's going to be a moment when the pandemic allowed us to open with the full capacities. And this is something that this makes everyone a little bit nervous, because nobody can predict how long they're going to take.
Let's talk about the content. How hard is for you when you heard that biggest major companies decide to postpone most of the potential hit movies, blockbusters for 2021 year? The lack of is obvious,
It's listen. The problem of our market is that our market traditionally, unfortunately, doesn't have a large support. I mean, in admissions of local content, because the local content only contributes with a couple of percent, depends by year, in the overall annual box office. So, unfortunately, that it's specific of this market. So, for example, in some, let's say, Eastern European markets, you have a major contribution by local movies in the names in the terms of quantity of movies, but also in the terms of capability of that movies to attract audience. Unfortunately, if you look statistics over the years, we have more difficult situation. We have some great years, but long time ago, and so we depend a lot about US product and European product. Of course, it's difficult when you miss movies like Bond or some other ones, which should, let's say, be very important for a certain period of year, because as you know, the cinema, it's working also in cycling, that one movie pulling another movie and the whole atmosphere is built up. And in their circumstances that you cannot predict releases and you don't have enough local content to feed the gap, it's almost impossible to plan, let's say, any activities longer than a week or two. So you're living week by week. You are trying to find out content which you can fill the holes, and to do countries which is not so popular in our markets, for example, Korean or Asian or different other ones, which was, let's say, successful movies in these markets. So even distribution trying to fill the gap on such titles. But of course, this is not locomotives. This is a nice, good movies these days, but not something that really create a mass visitor to cinema. So it's I cannot complain about support of distribution. Even our companies, it's very active on that side. But overall, as you know, it's a major country, so major source of content is not delivering content these days. This is something that you cannot how to say, cover with something else. This is impossible.
Laura, every time when some of the Hollywood studios decided to release the movie on the streaming platform, UNIC is disappointed with that move. But is it possible to fight that? I mean, for me, it's impossible. It's all about the money.
I think a business decision is a business decision, and that, you know, we accept that. But I think it's also fair to say that we do feel extremely disappointed, because I think we have served our distribution partners in Hollywood really well when things were going well. And I don't think it's outrageous from us to ask for a bit of support in these challenging times, especially for titles where cinema could expect them to be released in cinemas, have been advertising for them in cinemas, only to find out that they're, going to end up on an online platform. It is extremely challenging for us to, of course, we accept the decision, because as you say, we don't have a choice. We're not the one, calling the call here. But I do think we also need to show that we don't feel this is fair play, and that, there is a way to do this, and that we all need to stand side by side. In a way, in the question you asked, Hrvoje, that's what was quite frustrating for us over the summer, because that's when most of our market was open. That's when most of the films were released. And of course, now we are in a situation when, the US are more and more open and we are more and more closed. So I think the studios also have to acknowledge that maybe, the period for the day and date when the film is released at the same time everywhere is maybe not the best strategy to play at the moment. Because if you're waiting for 100% of cinemas to be open around the world, not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen right now. And the second thing is, financially, cinemas still make sense. Financially, this is where they're going to make the bulk of their revenues. And I think they should really keep that in mind. So in a way, I prefer to see film being postponed than being directly released on VOD, of course, or, the SVOD or PVOD. But I'm reiterating my call again, we do need a strong supply of content. We just do, because yes, we do have local content, we have European content, but it's also a market reality that in some of our territories, we don't have that strong tier on which cinemas can rely on. And we do need this US content to, again, attract the whole diversity of audiences that have been coming at the cinema.
Alen, it seems that the situation with the content when we're talking about independent cinema is a little bit better. Can you agree with that or not?
Because I agree that this commercial part of programming is important for everyone, of course, and it's crucial also the big problem is what Hrvoje said, distribution, you know, the release dates are changing on weekly basis. So it's very hard. Most of the independent cinemas are making monthly programming. So it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. Of course, we, as I said earlier, some of the independent titles worked well, especially during the summer. Maybe my opinion is that that this summer season wasn't used enough for releasing new titles, even maybe European one or something in general, because most of the cinemas were really worked well during the summer. But yeah, of course, that lots of our members are members of Europa Cinemas as well. So we had some kind of help and support from Europa Cinemas for our independent programming, and it was a huge help for us as well. But I must agree that we need commercial films as well. But what I want to say that I think that I'm a little bit optimistic when the new titles are going to be released, because what I want to emphasize is that during all these months, cinemas proved to be a very safe space, because we implemented all the measures, and audience accepted that. So I didn't hear about one case of disease in the cinemas, not only in Croatia, but I also read the article that
anywhere in the world,
22 million visitors in France, not one case of disease. So it's that is what we also should communicate more, even in the media, that cinemas are safe places to go.
We have some questions from the audience. What are your predictions on cinema in the future with all streaming services rising more and more? Laura, maybe you know, maybe you have a crystal ball.
It's in the corner somewhere around here. I should just get it out. No, I do think that people will continue to come to the cinema. I think 2019 again was a record year, 1.34 billion admissions across Europe. Do we see, we do see indeed that there are new VOD services being launched, but I do think the two are complementary. And I think we see that people who love films tend to both watch platforms, but they also tend to go a lot to the cinema. And I just think that the two will go hand in hand. And let's recall again, we're offering a different experience. When you go at the cinema, we're not only showing the film, we're showing the film in perfect conditions on a big screen, completely immersed in a room, sharing that with other people. It's a night out or it's a day out, but it's a different thing altogether. So I'm reasonably optimistic, let's put it that way. I don't want to sound like crazy, but no, I do think that, once this period is over, once we get the content streaming again in our cinema, not only on VOD platform, we will get back to the amazing business that we have, to the amazing figures we've had. We've been around for a long time, and trust me, we're not going to disappear tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree.
So with this optimistic prediction, we have to finish our discussion, this panel discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you
for these lovely words about the cinema exhibition and film distribution. See you next time. I hope in a better condition, and stay safe. What can I say? Thank you.
Thank you
all.
Thanks very much.
Bye. Bye-bye.